is all really the past 10 years. The reason that I've been appointed director, I've been in the job for a year now, is to look ahead 10 years. And so we have a series of retreats with our faculty. We have 28 faculty and 200 grad students in computer science and electrical engineering. But we also work closely with the Annenberg School of Communication, with the Thornton School of Music, because music turns out to be one of the hardest things to do, and so if we can do music, we know we can do spoken word. The Business School, of course, the School of Cinema, which has another huge game lab, very important for design. IMSC develops tools, all of our other partners, including Howard University, we hope, develop content. So looking out 10 years, as I said, we're looking at the consumer device of 10 years from now, which isn't that far away if you think about it. The consumer device of 10 years from now is going to have, at the $500 level in today's dollars, the power of something which today you could only get at a really high-end university or industry or government laboratory. Well, what kind of power, what kind of uses, what kinds of applications are going to be in something that has that kind of power? It's always dangerous to extrapolate from your own personal experience, but it's an interesting place to start. So we think, what do we use them for when we have access to all these wonderful tools? And if we were able to go out for $100 and buy a little bit of endless confusion, we're about to, IMSC occupies part of 3 buildings in the School of Engineering, and we're consolidating our headquarters and our new immersive interactive labs in Powell Hall. So I keep saying it's Powell No Relation Hall, like CB Hall. I keep going back to Powell Halls. I don't know what. Well, downstairs on the first floor in Powell Hall, something which the faculty put in because they thought it was really cool, is something which, when the former CEO of Hewlett-Packard, Carly Fiorina, came to visit, she said, HP has to have this. This is the ultimate video conferencing. And we put it because the faculty thought it was sort of cool. And after all, it might, even in Los Angeles, one of you's from LA, right? Yes. Even in LA, it rains sometimes. And, why get wet to go meet with somebody in another building? So they put in these immersive facilities where you have basically identical tables and chairs and then a bunch of high-resolution video screens. And you can sit and you have the illusion, far more powerfully than anything that you can imagine, that you are actually in the same room with people in the next building. Well, last summer we put in one of these rooms in Korea. And we discovered that there's a problem when you try to do it over several thousand miles, which is the speed of light going back and forth introduces a lag. So, and it's worse if somebody, the worst case is somebody telling a joke, and then there's about a 1 second pause, and then people laugh. It's really jarring. So that turns out to be a barrier. That's the kind of barrier we like to work on. We actually have broken the barrier of the speed of light with music. Cell phones have a lag time of 150 milliseconds or so, which is not terribly noticeable if you're talking on this kind of device. But if you're trying to play music with somebody, if you're trying to do a duet, or even worse, a quartet in 4 different cities, with musicians in Washington, Los Angeles, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Austin, Texas, the musicians really notice it. Well, there's a way around that. Okay, I'll come back to that in a minute. I'll forget this if I leave it. So again, looking out, okay, talking to people across distances, that's sort of cool. But it turned out that's not really where the value is that we're creating. We just had an assessment done by people who know what's going on in all the government labs and in all the major private industry labs around the country and university labs. And they said, okay, your video is actually pretty good. Your video is probably better than any place else. We can do in 2 hours, think of this for journalism, we can construct in 2 hours a highly realistic, highly detailed 3D model of any place on Earth. given 2 satellite or aerial photographs of that place. According to the Defense Department, it currently takes over 2 weeks for anybody else to do a model of that level of detail. And this is a model which exists. We use big 65-inch plasma screens. You can sit there, you can fly through them. We also don't use keyboards. How many of you have seen Minority Report, the Tom Cruise movie? The way he navigated that interface he used with his fingers just in space, that's actually an interface which was developed at our lab, and it works for real. So that's what we use for what we call geodeck, which is this thing which worked for the first time last spring. And the National Science Foundation, for their annual visit, we said, okay, we were sitting in a room a little larger than this. They said, well, how do all these technologies come together for the visualization? We said, well, we have this thing called geodeck, which is 5 different research thrusts and brings them all into one area to present a 3D live model. And so tell us what you'd like us to build for you. And they said, oh, Washington, D.C., that's a place we know. I said, oh, that's too easy. That's one of the faculty members said, Washington's going to be hard. I said, why? The buildings are all funny shapes. Try Midtown Manhattan. They're all nice rectangular buildings, easy to build. And I said, well, our faculty says this is a challenge. So we'll give you Washington, D.C. We need 2 satellite photos. And it turns out that's readily available online. You can go on to
Google.
You can go to Google. Actually, Google's slightly off, which is why Google signed with us so that we can correct their database. That's one reason they signed with us. But you can get from the French, from Sport Image, you can get from the United States. There are 2 competing companies which have civilian satellite imagery available. And it's pretty good. You're getting down to the 1 meter resolution range, which is what spy satellites, which is where spy satellites were 10 years ago. Funny thing about it, the U.S. companies are owned by the people who made the spy satellites.
Owned by the NSA.
Yeah, well, NSA gets the newest models, and the civilian imagery is the old model. And we were conducting the meeting, or they were conducting the meeting. It's their assessment of us. And I said, you'll see the model taking effect, taking shape in the plasma screens in the back of the room every now and then turn around. There was a movie with Kevin Costner, No Way Out. I don't know how many of you saw that, a spy movie, where there's imagery that has to that forms during the course of one scene, and Kevin Costner is trying to stop the imagery from forming because it's going to implicate him in a murder. Well, in the back of the room, there was imagery of Washington, D.C. It was slowly coming together and getting more and more detailed. And at the end of 2 hours, we had a highly detailed 3D model of downtown Washington, which you could fly through. You could point to a building, you could go there, you could sort of go up, down. We tried to make the interface as intuitive as possible.